Welcome back to my channel, Achinogola the Lawyer. Karibuni sana. And in the previous video, we were talking about the specific points that candidates need to consider as they move towards the 2022 general election. I gave 10 points in the last video, and this video I also give 10 more points that candidates should still consider, and I hope these points actually help them to win the elections and understand that elections are usually the same everywhere, and so these points can also be valuable to people who are vying for organizations and even to people in different countries. So if you enjoyed the video, like, share and subscribe. So I'd like to go to point 11, and the point 11 says have specific people assigned with specific tasks. This is because, of course, we understand that in a campaign team, as a candidate, there is a lot of work to be done. But once you assign specific roles to specific people, you'll be able to hold accountable that person for the failure or lack of the action taking place. For example, let's say you've assigned someone to be able to confirm that, or rather, let's say on the voting day itself, the agents. One is assigned as the chief agent, especially maybe for someone who's vying for the governor's seat. There's the chief agent, then the constituency agent, then there's also an agent at the polling station. So you know that the chief agent is in charge of all the agents and is supposed to collect information from the agents, and should be updating you on an hourly basis on things that are happening at the constituency level, at the ward level. So you know that in the event that this person fails to execute their mandate, they're the ones who I hold responsible or should give an explanation as to why. So that's very important. Have specific people for specific tasks. The next one that I know happens, but let me say I'm giving a caution. It is have a Trojan horse or a spy in your enemy's camp. Information is power, and we know how information can be used to even be able to make a certain candidate who is losing win. So you have to be very careful with this, because the person who is the spy in your enemy's camp should not be someone who can be suspected, so that you can be able to get information on what they're doing and how you should prepare yourself. This is really a point that's really up to you, but it helps at some point, so I'd advise. The 13th point rather is use boots on the ground to campaign. Now, of course, we've been seeing social media campaigns, aspirants and candidates using social media as a tool of campaign. But one thing we understand sometimes in social media, it can be a fallacy, because, for example, in some type of elections, the opinion polls which were being done to see who's winning, and of course these opinion polls can be influenced, but the real deal is on the ground. In Kenya, in Swahili, we say vitu kwa ground ni different, so it's important to understand that social media is a good tool for campaign, but now in less than a month, you have to visit your constituents, you have to move around and talk to them. Lazima uuze sera kwa wananchi. Do not expect that just because we see on social media you look good, you are trending, that you'll be voted for. People really don't count on that, so don't ignore the boots on the ground. The 14th point, that this especially to women, I would say you have to understand that in politics there is little ethics. People will use whichever means they want to use to win. So once you understand that, you have to know then, even as there are rules of the game, how do I protect myself, or how do I position myself in such a way that I'm still the most favorable candidate and do not actually taint my name in the process of elections. I'd like to say for example, two women who I admire in politics and have been in this space for so long is Martha Karua, who's the running mate of Raila, and Charity Ngilu. I admire the way they do their politics, and I'd advise women just understand that there's little ethics, and once you've made peace with that, even the things that your enemies will try to do against you, you will understand how to go around it. The 15th point is count the cost before you begin. Now, right now it's too late to pull out of the elections, but I've seen some people even selling their houses, selling all their property to engage in the electoral race. Then once they do not win, actually even they get depressed or commit suicide. You should understand what it takes to win the elections. Even the Bible tells us before you set out on doing something, I'm paraphrasing, you should count the cost. So understand actually what it takes. Especially for women, it will really require so much from you. Like campaign meetings at night, and maybe as a man, no one will question you when you're out at night having strategy meetings, but as a woman you might have to do that, maybe with the permission of your husband. I don't know, I'm not yet married. But yeah, just count the cost and know what you require. Then the 16th point is trading favors. Now at this point, of course, many people will use money to be able to influence the votes. But one thing I'd like to encourage candidates, I'd rather you trade in favors, meaning that let someone help you in some way and you can return that favor once you get into government. Many people can be bought by money. People have a price. But when you've done something for someone, especially maybe, let me say, a level-headed person, because the people have no shame, a level-headed person, they can be able to return back that favor, or you can be able to return that favor. So that's one thing I'll advise candidates. You will overspend if you want to buy everyone, but do something to someone that can't be bought by money. Then the 17th point is have a discerning mind and see through the intentions of men. This is because during these last 30 days, people might trick you to do something that can cost you. Even as I was just preparing to do this video, I was talking to one of my videographers, and we were talking about how someone did a blunder in the last week of elections and they actually failed. So have a discerning mind and consult, get the relevant advice, and trust your gut instincts, but consult. Then the 18th point, this is a sad point, I'd like to say it, but even as I say it, I'd like to emphasize that we want peace in Kenya, because especially as young professionals, we do not want what we are building to go to waste. So most of the time, politics involves a lot of, let me say, smearing and even war. This is because everyone, as I've said, is using whichever means they think they have to use to win. So people will use certain tactics that are not agreeable to be able to win the elections, but of course we have the laws that guide us. But then that's what I'm saying, once you understand that it's a battle of wits, ideas, interests, you'll be able to see then how you can best position yourself, that even if you do not win, you're able to get a slice of the cake. So here, if you're, let me say, a woman especially, know what you will expect as you have put yourself in this race. Then 19th point, issues to do with morality, of course, will come up, especially as regards to women. I think it's a point that I'm just buttressing, but of course now one thing I'm liking, and I just have to say this with Martha, is how she's dressing. I mean, her designer is just on point. So especially on women, just ensure that your morality really is not in question. I don't know how you could ensure that, but during this last few days to elections, things with morality can raise up that can change the minds of your voters. So be very careful on the speeches that you give regarding moral issues in the society, because it could shape a narrative to the minds of your voter. Then the last point that I'd like to talk about, which I earlier talked about in the last video, but something else I'd just like to buttress, is hire professionals who have a track record of delivering results to manage your campaign team, else rather you'll lose miserably. This is because, for example, on communication, you need someone who has a background maybe in communication or media to be able to tell you which is the messaging strategy you should use to be able to communicate with your voters, and maybe on issues to do with mobilizing or some things like political strategy. A political science person would be best suited. So use professionals who have a track record. I hear, or rather I've seen some aspirants having people who are branding themselves as campaign strategists. If you listen to their strategies rather, you just get tired. They don't know anything to do with the strategies, but then they are branding themselves as so, and the candidate is spending so much on them, yet they are not delivering results. So I'll advise you, in the last 30 days or less than 30 days to the elections, use means and ways that have been proven to work before, and use people who have shown that they have delivered wins for certain candidates. Don't believe everyone, because you'll just cry. Itakuwa ni machozi tu. So I hope with these nuggets you'll be able to see which ones you can apply as you move towards the election. And I wish every candidate the best. And the last thing I'd say is, there's a God in heaven who governs all the affairs of men, and nothing happens by chance. So if you are called to be in this space or to lead in this time frame for the next 5 years, it is God who decided so. So I'd like to just end by preaching peace, that whichever person who enters into government, you're able to put the interests of the wananchi who put you there first, and that you're able to build a Kenya that we can pass to other generations. Thank you.